If you didn't catch it early at the service, today is Confirmation Sunday, where CD and Hadley are going to be confirmed following the service. And what a great text for Confirmation Sunday that we have been given through the lectionary, which is the church's calendar of readings. And I was reminded as I was reading through this passage in the Gospel of John of a story that comes almost from the time of Jesus, about 200 years after Jesus was with the disciples in that room in 250. There was a man who was a bishop of the church in Carthage, which is in North Africa. And the church was really going through it about 1,800 years ago. There were internal squabbles and divisions and even schism. There were rival bishops being elected and giving differing instructions for how to be Christian in the city of Carthage. On top of that, the Roman Empire was declaring an empire-wide persecution of Christians. And so Christians were ordered to make sacrifices to the emperor as a god or to suffer the consequences, most certainly involving imprisonment, exile, or death. And then on top of that, there was a plague sweeping across the empire, which is actually remembered today as the plague of Cyprian, who was the bishop in Carthage at that time. He's not the one who caused the plague, but he's the one who reminds us 1,800 years later that the plague happened, and so it's called the plague of Cyprian. But in that time, Cyprian, the bishop of Carthage, was surrounded by all these intense internal and external difficulties in his congregations, and so he wrote a letter in the year 256. And in that letter, he has this incredible line, which is actually passed down to him from an earlier church leader. But Cyprian reminded his flock that as Christians, we do not merely speak great things, we live them. We do not merely speak great things, but we live them. In the face of inward and outward distress and chaos, people fleeing the church to save their lives, fleeing because they don't believe it anymore, they don't see it having any kind of effect in the world, Cyprian commands them not merely to speak about the gospel, but to embody it. Well, here in John 20, we encounter another community in crisis. This happens on the same day that Jesus encounters Mary Magdalene at the tomb, but now it is night. The shadows and the fear are closing in on the disciples who have locked the doors to protect themselves. You're seeing people afraid. You're seeing them without hope because their leader has been killed. And they know what happens to the followers of those who have rebelled against the Roman Empire. They too will be condemned and executed. And so they've locked the doors to keep out the leaders of Jerusalem, to hide away. Their hearts are broken. Their spirits are empty. And yet in that very moment, the risen Christ appears to them. Peace be with you. Time after time, generation after generation, age after age, the church community encounters crisis. We look at our state of the church in America here in 2025, and we might think it's unique what we're experiencing, unprecedented. But the truth is, that's not the case. For as long as the church has been around, it has struggled. It has wrestled with trying to be faithful in a world that is challenging, with trying to be in relationship with each other. And so sometimes I feel like we're a little bit arrogant if we think that we're going through this unprecedented experience. But nevertheless, we come to the second Sunday of Easter season, and maybe we too are feeling hopeless, without answers, as we look at the state of our church and our world. I don't know if you saw the Pew Research Project that came out earlier this year, and it noted that after a decade or so of intense decline, that actually decline in the church has plateaued. It's leveled off. But that just means to me that everybody who was going to leave has probably already left. And those who remain are facing all kinds of challenges, internally and externally. I mean, the United Methodist Church, our own denomination, has gone through a period of intense division and struggle. And then externally, we see all kinds of pressures as wings of the church get taken up, get co-opted into this religious nationalism, seeking power and control, hell-bent on the glory of the gospel without the suffering of the cross. And then we see other wings of the church that just seem lethargic, out of touch, outdated with the concerns that people today are going through. And so you might be wondering, as you are here in this room, maybe not with locked doors, but certainly with closed doors and closed windows, you might be wondering, where is God in all this? Is Jesus even bothering to show up anymore? Well, the promise is that Jesus does show up. He meets us here in moments like this. When our hearts are broken wide open, when our spirits feel drained, that's when Jesus comes and gives us exactly what we need. That's why today is a day we need confirmation. We need new people joining us, part of this community, to remind us that God is still doing something in our midst, calling us not to hide behind locked doors, not to circle the wagons, but to go out and to be led, to be the people God has made us to be in Jesus Christ. I don't know if you noticed in John 20, but this is a kind of commissioning text, a sending out text that happens at the end of every one of our gospels in the Greek scriptures. But John's text is a little bit different. If you read Mark and you read Matthew and you read Luke, Jesus shows up to the disciples after his resurrection and he says, go out and tell people about what's happened. Go out and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You will be my witnesses. But here in John, we don't get so much about verbal proclamation. We get something more incarnational, more embodied, being something rather than just talking about it. As the Father has sent me, Jesus says to his disciples on that Easter night, so I send you. Which reminds me of that great bishop's words 1,800 years ago. We do not merely speak about great things. We live them. The good news, friends, the good news of Easter, that Jesus is alive and has overcome all things, including death, that good news is not merely meant to be spoken about. It's not meant to be talked about here in this room where it stays on Sunday mornings. It's not meant to even be taken out and just talked about through written tracts or bullhorns. No, it's meant to be more. It's meant to be enacted, embodied, made part of you, and lived out for the blessing of the world. Did you hear how John ends this passage this morning? He has those tantalizing words. I don't know if you're intrigued as much as I was, but John says, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. What? You left them out? But what if that one example, that one saying, that one story would have made the difference in somebody's life? Why would John choose to not put it in there? Well, I wonder if it has something to do with the commissioning, the promise that Jesus has just given to his followers. That the story is not yet finished. That Jesus is not yet done doing things. That he will continue to do great signs and wonders in the presence of his disciples, even in 2025 in San Antonio, Texas. That Jesus is still doing stuff that John couldn't even write about 2,000 years ago. Because he continues to live and work and minister through you. Confirmation is the moment when we accept responsibility for the promise that was made over us at our baptism. It's the chance for us to put ourselves in position to really embrace and employ the gifts that God has given us through the work of the Holy Spirit. It's to say, yes, this story that was spoken over me when I was a child or maybe younger, now I want it to be my story. I want to make it my own. I want to work with Christ here and now by the power of the Holy Spirit. And so in just a moment, we'll invite CD and Hadley up, and we're going to pray over them. We're going to remind them of the gift of their baptism, and then we're going to invoke the Spirit to work in their life, to do great things, not merely just to speak about them, but to be an embodiment, an enacting of the good news told 2,000 years ago. And Jesus promises that he's going to work through you. That he's going to show up in you, in your life, and do something. I don't know about you, but that can feel pretty overwhelming to me. What? Me? Christ wants to work in me? Well, the promise that Jesus makes us in this gospel is twofold. One, that the Spirit will be with you. That it's not just up to you. That the Spirit can make anything out of what we do. Even the failures that we have. God can make something of that for the glory of the kingdom, for the fulfillment and furthering of the good news. So part of the promise is that you're not doing it on your own, that God will lift you up and fill you with life so that when you speak, when you act, God can take those words and those deeds and make them eternal, eternally significant, eternally beautiful. That's the first promise. But the second promise is that you don't have to do it by yourself. You have a community around you. Look at these people around you. Do you see them, Hadley and CD? How about y'all look around? Do you see these people around you? The people around you are daily enacting great things in their lives. Whether you know it or not, God is doing a great work in your life merely by you being part of this body. Whether you consciously choose to participate in God's movement, God shows up and graces your work. I know at least one of you are stepping up in your family, caring for your nieces and nephews after an untimely death. I know at least one of you are showing up for a woman who's houseless and maintain a relationship with that woman when she's cut off from the rest of her family. I know at least one of you who continues to work on Spanish far into adulthood so that you can be in real relationship with communities that you visit regularly that only speak Spanish. I know at least one of you that have adopted children and welcomed them into your own family, a reminder of what we do here in the church. Person after person, story after story, God takes all of these things and weaves them together into the great, beautiful narrative we call the gospel. The gospel is not merely meant to be spoken about. It's meant to be embodied. And the good news is that Jesus is doing that through you. Right here, right now. And CD and Hadley, you're going to be part of that story we're telling here at Alamo Heights. God is going to work in your gifts and your words to make us a better representation of who Jesus has always called us to be. And in turn, these people around you who will pray for you, who will support you, who will remind you of what's true when you feel surrounded by a world that feels false, all of these people are going to refine and equip you so that you too can become better and better representations of that good news. But the promise remains here in this story. That Jesus has gifted us something and says, as the Father has sent me, so I send you. He says that to you today. And that's an extravagant promise, is it not? That you're going to be sent in the same way Jesus was. But this promise can be trusted because it's made by one who has nothing standing between him and us, not even the grave. All things have been overcome. He is not limited by anything. And so he can make audacious, ridiculous, radical promises that we can trust because he is alive and he will be faithful to the end. Trusting this promise, we don't have to be afraid. Trusting this promise, we don't merely have to enjoy the presence of God, but we can be that presence for others. Trusting this promise, we can really be free to live lives that don't merely speak about great things, but enact them.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Weekly Teaching. To watch the full live stream of this worship service, you can view all archived streams at the Alamo Heights UMC YouTube channel. If you have any questions, email us at podcasts@ahumc.org. That's podcasts@ahumc.org. You can also visit our website, ahumc.org, anytime. Any related links are also in this episode's show notes. Again, thank you so much for being a listener. We truly appreciate your time.